famed author Clive Cussler.
The hero, Dirk Pitt.
She was shuddering, and her breath came in choking sobs. God, they shot him a dozen times. First things first, he said gently. Get in the bathroom and fix your face.
Pacific Vortex, Episode 2, Murder, Backwards.
Around here is pretty good. We briefly got up to almost a record high temperature for that day, and now it's back down to being kind of lame outside. A bunch of towns near me were evacuated because of forest fire.
How close to you?
About, 3 hours away? So, not super close, but it's just annoying that it's this early in the season that we already have, evacuated towns.
That's incredible. Because it's 3 hours away is too close to, you don't want to go out to dinner or, leave town because it's really too close.
I mean, we've had 5 fires around town that we could see, but they were small and they were put out quickly.
Good. We have an above-ground pool. Classy, I know. It is sinking.
So you're saying soon it'll be an in-ground pool and worth more?
Yeah, I don't think that's how that's going to work. And we have neighbors, because we're on a mountain, we have neighbors. The street over and the street below are, one's up and one's down, so the people down from us are quite concerned.
Is the soil just getting too soft or what?
It's turning into mud. Everything is, we have deep clay. We have a layer of topsoil, rocks. So just to make farmers cry, the soil is very rocky. And then impenetrable clay.
Nice and waterproof.
I did have a realization about Dirk Pitt.
Oh.
I think he's Poldark. Do you know the character Poldark?
No?
It's a ladies' romance.
It rings a bell, but I have no idea.
That tracks. It's almost like a romance novel, but it was more Criterion Collection romance novel. So classy. It's considered a classic work of adventure romance. And there was a PBS special about it. Not about it. There's a PBS special labeled Poldark with a handsome man. And he was such an asshole. But he's the hero. But he's such a jerk. And you're like, well, the way you're reacting to everybody, how are you the hero?
Ross Poldark, a novel of Cornwall. Is that it?
Yes.
Jeremy Poldark.
He's deeply upset because he wanted to marry his cousin. Because everyone in England has to have a wreath for a family tree. But while he's away at war, she marries someone else. So he has to marry a stranger.
Ugh. I thought that's how it worked in the old days.
But just marrying a cousin?
Well, yeah, not a cousin, but a stranger. Sorry, my mind immediately went to the backstory for Race the Titanic, where that huge red-headed, Yorkshireman miner just, literally grabbed a girl off the street in a snowstorm.
Oh, yes.
And they lived happily ever after.
That's classic romance.
Ah, classic. Is that how you make romance great again?
It's still problematic, don't worry.
Abductions.
Well, that's it for my paddock, because I live a substantially boring life. Oh, there's a water scandal. We've had so much rain, but the town over is paying for water to be trucked in because the town supervisor's brother has a water company.
One of those.
Yes, it's so quaint.
The fun, okay, not fun, it's fun in quotes, obviously. Been reading a lot about water lately just because there was a series of satellite photos of where I live posted each spring for the last 5 years, and you can just see the rivers drying up and disappearing.
Yes.
And we're at the top of the Fraser. So all these rivers go through BC, go into the States. They join up with the Columbia River. Well, some of them do. All those states are running out of water. And then yesterday, there was an alert that Mexico City might run out of water before 2025.
That's a few months away.
The largest city in North America.
That's terrifying.
Yeah.
Yay?
Hooray.
And, well, at least we're primed for somebody to come along and Gabriella Prince up this place. It really feels like any second somebody in Yugoslavia or parts unknown, a surprise location, will shoot somebody else and I'll maybe just kneecap them and World War III will happen. We're on the precipice.
That'll fix all of our water problems. That sounds like the medical advice that I got from my mom and my wife got from her dad, which was along the lines of, you say ow, my leg hurts. So he'll smash your hand with a hammer and go, see, now your leg doesn't hurt as much.
That is a pain management skill.
See? Suddenly being out of water doesn't seem like that big of a deal, does it?
Yes, it does. It's going to cause mass migrations. We live in a very racist... I live in a very racist country. They're gonna say there's migrant caravans and totalitarian state, here we come. We are just a bizarre country that was founded by crazy sex addicts. The Puritans were weirdos.
I was going to say sex addicts and the opposite of sex addicts.
No, the Puritans were sex addicts. They were just real weird. Like, if your husband wasn't touching you for a month or two, you can have him pilloried in town square.
We do need more babies.
Yes.
God wants babies.
There was a whole council of elder women that would, if you were having trouble with your husband, they would examine him and basically point and laugh.
That'll fix him.
Oh, yeah. There's so many things can be boiled down to this few hundred people with their weird ideas and overreaching power because their diseases killed all the native peoples.
It's hard to believe we go off on tangents.
Now we get to this book, Vortex, Pacific Vortex.
Yes, welcome to Cussler Hustlers, the world's first and only Clive Cussler podcast. I couldn't think of anything funny to say as a tagline today, so I just went back to the old ones. I'm your co-host Topper. I'm over here. I'm sick. And over there is co-host Nancy.
Hi, everyone.
And today I think we're going to get through chapters 7 through 12 of Pacific Vortex, which is the entire middle of the book. There are not, the last few books have had 68, 75 chapters. This one maxes out at 17.
Yes, and it's fast.
This book's in a hurry. We have shit to do and people to kill.
It was his first book. It was published out of order. But boy, does he leave a few plot lines, just drops them cold. Chapter 7.
He does leave some threads hanging, but for once, the weird coincidence that kicks off the plot by the end of chapter 12 gets explained. The weird coincidence that you really got to stretch to believe, how did this happen? It gets explained in a really good way. I was impressed by that. There was no weird coincidence. This shit actually all kind of happened on purpose and ties together. It was just written by somebody who I think was drunk on the heady power of getting to write his first novel. And it's all over the place.
Now you are Emily Dickinson.
Look at me! I'm Angie Dickinson! Out of my way!
It's all over the place. He has some wonderful lines.
He does. He has
very glorious, lurid details and descriptions.
The way the language changes the instant he's talking about a woman as compared to a man, though, is very glaring. I think he worked on his subtlety later on.
The way he describes women is the same way he describes the mechanics. So, lots of details, the shapes. A man is just gruff in there. If it's a woman or something mechanical, he'll go into the shapes, the sounds, the smells.
In chapter 3, I said that he was, the way he described the automatic Mauser was a little hornier than I was hoping for a gun. And in this section, the way he describes the computer-designed submarine is a little hornier than I would have expected.
It's also so delightful. It's all computer-designed. So chapter 7.
Chapter 7, Pitt is at the docks, and I've already written down one sentence. So, it smelled of gas, oil, tar, and smoke. An evocative smell that reminded him of exotic faraway ports. That's not exotic to me.
No, that just smells like the airport. Or a garage.
Yeah. Must be an army guy thing.
He goes aboard this vessel. He's supposed to report to the Martha Ann, and it looks like a derelict.
Mm-hmm.
Hold on. There's going to be a twist.
I love how he shows up in disguise, so he's basically dressed like a homeless guy, but he still arrives in his AC Cobra sports car as a homeless guy. Good disguise.
He's never heard of mixed messaging. But he gets to this place, and somebody asks him for ID. He's outraged again.
Mm-hmm.
This guy has a case of, don't you know who I am? In a perverted, sadistic fashion. No, nobody knows who you are. Have your ID ready. You're in the military. This shouldn't be a surprise every time somebody asks for ID.
And there's a reason things like this have security, considering this whole thing is about finding, the world's most advanced super sub that was apparently hijacked and sunk. Maybe they'll check some IDs to keep a lid on things. Dirk?
Let's hope, but probably in the 60s and 70s, they weren't checking IDs. That's probably why his character was so outraged.
My dad's a senator.
There were 12 guys. It's don't you know, it's Bob, it's Chad, it's Orly. So he gets aboard the Martha Ann. It looks like a derelict. And some guy gets his ID, receives all the punishment that entails, and then stomps on the dirt floor, and a shaft opens, and he gets all secret compartmented into the Martha Ann.
Yes, which has tons and tons and tons of high-tech computer equipment, and it's the Navy's most advanced salvage ship.
And it's just
Looks like a piece of crap.
a facade. The dereliction is not real. It's just some oxidizing paint and graffiti and a whole mock-em-up to make it look like a shrinky-dink vessel. But Pitt gets spooky talking with another crewman, and they talk about, the other sea anomalies.
Mm-hmm.
And Pitt has a categoric knowledge of all the spooky sea stuff. He talks to the guy about there was a sea anomaly in Japan that was picked up by 2 vessels. There was a sea anomaly in Iceland. A research vessel detected Morse code and crazy laughter at depths that are unimaginable.
Yeah, 19,000 feet down.
So Pitt's there with his ghost stories to spook the hell out of the throwaway character he's talking to.
I hope one of them comes back, because the weird sonar readings from the Japanese boats was a contact traveling underwater at 110 miles per hour.
Yes, it smacks of sea monster.
Yeah.
I hope we get a sea monster soon.
I've been saying since episode 1 of this podcast, I want a sea monster. There has to be a sea monster. We raise Atlantis, for Christ's sake. Well, they don't raise Atlantis, they find Atlantis, but I want sea monsters.
And we meet Commander Boland and the 101st Fleet for salvage. Why is it always the 101st? Do the armed services have no other numbers? Every fleet or regiment or battalion is always the 101st.
All the other ones sank.
Even the army ones? Wild. And Boland tells us there's a Russian ship looking for this submarine too. It's named Andrei Vybong. So we have that piece of knowledge just to tuck away. Everyone's in civilian clothes because this is not a Navy vessel. And they take great pains to say that it's the paperwork, all of the registries. If the Russians look it up, the Martha Ann is solidly civilian.
Yes. It just happens to have all this high-tech naval hardware on it.
It just looks like a rust bucket.
Yeah. I just mean, in case it's ever captured.
Well, then the jig is up.
Yes, okay.
It also has the return pilot capability, so if everyone is dead, they get their ship back.
Mm-hmm.
So the jig is up if it's taking the baddies back to your home port anyway.
I was really hoping that was going to come back too, because they talk about how the Martha Ann has a supercomputer that A, controls the ship, and B, can be reprogrammed remotely from naval headquarters. And as soon as I saw that, I was like, oh, someone takes it over. I bet we get early hacking and somebody hacks it and takes it over. That doesn't happen yet, but I'm hopeful.
So Pitt is told by Boland that he's the escape plan. His helicopter is where they'll all gather if something happens, but Boland's like, it's not going to happen. Well,
yeah.
We can detect anything.
There's no such thing as a Pacific vortex. Jesus.
Well, yes, after Pitt describes all of the spooky things, he's like, Pacific vortex, pshaw. But he does have a good point that detection is not defense. Just because you can detect the bad guys doesn't mean you could do jack about them.
Exactly. Which Pitt points out over and over and over again.
Yes.
We're in chapter 8 now. Pitt starts off fantasizing about giant men.
As he always does.
Because all he can think about right now is the one plot point that hasn't really been addressed, which is the giant man with golden eyes who was in the museum looking up everything about the lost island of Cannoli. Maybe that'll come back. And then Boland gives him a tour and is basically just a dick.
Yes, but he's a macho dick, and he kind of clicks with Dirk Pitt.
Yeah.
In a manly, I don't like you, but I like you kind of way.
We're both dicks, but competent.
And this is where they begin detecting the seabed rise, and they are approaching the seamount, which is a word that we learn here. Maybe you've already known it, listener. For the rest of us, they find basically an uncharted spit of land that's round.
The water should be 15,000 feet deep, and it's 6,000. Pitt has gut knowledge about,
as he always does,
what it all means, but he won't tell anyone yet. Ooh, I think you froze.
Oh, still frozen? Frozen? You're
very glitchy.
Oh, good. If you can mostly hear me, that'll make a grand podcast. But while they're scanning the ocean floor, listeners, they're going to scan the ocean floor. That's what they're doing now. They have their supercomputer database loaded with all of the wrecks that have disappeared in this area, so they can scan and ID, just like they did on your favorite crime show in the 1990s.
The seafloor is rising. It's rising. It gets up to about 90 feet deep. which is wild. And at the rate it's rising, because they talk about how it's rising 1 foot for every 2 feet forwards they travel, that means they should see land about 2,000 feet in front of them. And it takes like 2 pages before somebody's like, look out a window. Do you see anything? And when they finally check with the bridge and they're like, yeah, there's nothing out there, although the water's green. That's weird.
And there's vegetation that shouldn't be there. Apparently, in warm water, seaweed shouldn't grow.
I thought warm water had like some kind of seaweed.
They have sea plants, but not seaweed.
Not seaweed. I'm sure my wife would know that. And then their magnetometer starts hitting all the shipwrecks, just one after another. And then they find a gigantic submarine. I wonder what it could be.
Well, it turns out it's a Starbuck. And now plans have to take place. Dirk's like, we got to dive on it.
Yeah.
The clock is ticking. Bowen's like, are you mad? And then some Navy honor shit comes up. It's a vessel. It's a Navy vessel. We have to check. It's a threadbare plot line here of like, no, you actually don't have to check. You can just all leave now. Call for backup. Something like that. Like, you don't have to stay and dive on this ship. But something about you don't leave a ship behind, or lots of hero coding messaging, yada yada. He and this guy, Lieutenant March, dive on the submarine.
And at first, they only agree to dive on it and have a look around it and take like super up close pictures with it,
but not go in.
Photographs, just photographs. Under no circumstances are you to engage the enemy.
And not go in. But as Chapter 8 ends, because this book lacks anything approaching subtlety, we have Pitt's thought of, poor old Boland. He hasn't the vaguest idea of what I'm up to. Nudge, wink.
Nod suggestively.
Yeah, he's really intent on getting this Lieutenant March killed. This is a real temporary character. Don't get too attached.
Chapter 9, they break into the submarine.
And we meet Barf, the magic dragon. It's a shark killer.
That was fun.
Yes, it's my favorite character. It's this pressurized little canister gun that if a shark comes upon you, you can't shoot it or punch it or whatever. That'll come up later. It explodes the shark from the inside out.
Yeah.
And I thought, it's inside out, and it exploded. Galaxy Quest, I love you.
It's basically a super ultra high-powered hypodermic needle.
It's more like with a lot of pressurized air.
Yeah, exactly. It's not like a stab and then an explosion goes off and it doesn't like shoot a bullet into the shark. It doesn't try and blow the shark. Well, it does blow the shark up, quite literally. It suddenly injects a CO2 canister under the shark's skin. So not only does it hurt and will probably kill the shark, but it also makes it buoyant and whoop, shark goes up and you're safe.
I feel comfortable going on this tangent.
Yay!
There was, in the early 90s, a guy had an accident at a Quick Lube or a Jiffy Lube.
Oh, I know this one.
And he gets
going.
inflated? It's very bad. Don't do that.
I know of 2 stories where that happened. One guy got injured on a canister and it inflated his abdomen, and one guy got it on his leg. And I don't know why I know those.
Oh, this guy had it in his torso, and he had a lot of problems because the skin separated from his ribs.
Ew.
Which I particularly remembered, and Dirk goes through that. We get to that later.
Dirk doesn't quite go through that, but Dirk gets front row seats for that.
Yes. But they get to the sub, and of course they go into the sub. Dirk is the worst coworker. He bullies this guy into the sub. Lieutenant March is 22 years old. He's terrified.
Yeah.
And he bullies him against orders into the submarine. And then we find out it's still pressurized, which is madness.
Through the emergency escape hatch, which is just like an airlock. And they find the inside, and we get more horny descriptions of basically, it really sounds like he's describing the Starship Enterprise rather than the submarine.
It's pages and pages
of descriptions.
Of technical porn.
Oh my God, they made the reactor.
This is so shiny and sleek and beeps and buzzes.
The reactor in the engine room, the same room. They must have they've solved all the issues with radiation. Oh my God, it's so amazing and high tech in here. Look, computers.
Yes, I love that they solved the issue of radiation. Yeah, they're not going to tell you about the radiation is how they solved it.
But there's no people, there's no food, there's no personal effects.
There's no litter, there's no detritus of everyday life, no broken pencils, no paper, no sugar packets, nothing that indicates it's ever been used.
It's in perfect working order and it's completely cleaned out.
Yes, no half cups of coffee, no warm plates of toast, nothing like the Marie Celeste.
Yeah.
Is been rinsed.
And it's not sunk on the bottom of the ocean, it's just parked.
Yes, just 90 degrees below the surface. You should be able to see it.
Yeah.
And it's just on a grassy meadow right below the surface. And it smells of eucalyptus. everywhere.
So Pitt goes off on his own and finds the radio room and radios into Boland.
Which is actually, at this point, nice because they have long since would have run out of oxygen. So Boland is losing his brain topside and trying to send men down there with extra tanks because he thinks Dirk is made of pudding for brains. And he's trying to get these guys rescued. Mostly he wants Lieutenant March back. That's his guy. He doesn't know they're safe. And Dirk comes up. I would have killed him. The amount of yelling, Dirk would not have needed a radio.
It does seem like that because Boland alternates between like yelling at Pitt for being an idiot and like quiet fury and actually being impressed that Pitt did it and found the sub and everything. Well, not everything's okay because there's no one there. There's no sign of the crew. Boland's like, God damn, Pitt did it. What a guy. But then the radio goes dead.
Yes, suddenly Pitt looks up and he's struck by something and the line goes dead.
Because nothing goes well for long.
And it's chapter 10, we roll in.
The chapters get a lot bigger because that was 7, 8, 9, like in 5 minutes. 10, 11, 12 are monsters.
Yes. The reason Dirk trails off is this wraith creature kind of floats in front of him, and it's a seaman first class Ferris, who's emaciated. His uniform is rags.
Yeah.
And his brain is gone.
And he says, Who are you? You're not one of them. They'll kill you if you've used the radio. And he's just babbling. Pitt eventually finds out that, it's Seaman First Class Ferris, and they could be anywhere. And Pitt realizes, oh shit, I left March downstairs.
Yes. This guy is very convenient in that his brain is gone. 1,000-yard stare and all that. He's not registering Dirk Pitt, really. But he does warn him of several things. There's 2 men aboard at all times, and don't use the radio, they'll kill you. Oh, and you're not dressed like the other guys, which indicates other men. Like, not just one baddie, but multiples. And they have a manner of dress.
And yet Pitt suddenly realizes, like, oh shit, I kind of walked us into a trap. Which is what he was saying for 3 straight chapters to Boland. Like, we're basically going into a trap.
The whole time.
Yeah. And he has no expectation of this happening.
Once he discovers that there's baddies on board, he realizes one is right behind him.
Well, that's after he heads downstairs. He finds March's corpse.
Yes.
In the medical bay. And he's been, like, shot through twice. There's blood everywhere. And then he hears a tiny sound behind him. And I'll let you take it.
He doesn't even spin. He just goes right for murder, backwards. But he does get to use his shark exploding device. And he turns around to see the guy explode from the inside out. His eyeballs and viscera, everything blows out like an elephant that swallowed dynamite.
Yeah. The man goes I wrote down a sentence for that. The man goes splorch as all of his internal organs shoot out of his mouth, nose, eyes, and ears.
Which couldn't be a death fast enough.
I don't think he's getting up from that.
2 Advil. So Pitt's really freaked out now.
But
he's out of ammo. That's a one-shot device.
He's out of ammo, but he picks up the gun from the dead guy, who is, by the way, a huge, hairy man wearing a loincloth. And based on how they describe it, he has like a weird, like, ray gun-looking thing.
Yes, the gun doesn't have a trigger. It has like a button, and the handle part of the gun is molded for like a whole hand.
Yeah.
Almost like a seashell gun.
And it's apparently like silent. It makes like a little hissing sound, but also punches holes in whatever you shoot it with.
It seems to be a very effective weapon.
Very effective.
And we never get the details on it. So that's one of my plot points that just dangles off into nowhere. This gun is amazing.
How did he leave a gun unexplained? This is Clive Cussler we're talking about.
Well, we know it's sleek and futuristic looking. He gives us nothing beyond that.
He should have like 8 pages of information about how the engineering works.
Oh, yes. And this was originally made in Germany under the Habsburgs with steel forged in Mordor. So Dirk comes across the other baddie. I forget how he does him in.
That's when he shoots him with the weird future ray gun thing.
Or he does.
And there's a little hiss, and he shoots the guy in the head and kills him instantly. And he keeps running, but then he bonks his knee and he drops the gun. And he has a little panic attack, but it turns out that the next 2 people, because he drops the gun and he realizes he has no chance to pick it up before these next 2 men in front of him kill him. But the next 2 men are the rescue team from Boland.
Yes, the ones he sent down with the extra O2 tanks because he thought Dirk forgot how to scuba dive.
And I like how they went in the exact same hatch that Pitt went in, even though they think that Pitt and March are just like under the submarine. They went in the exact same door. What are the odds?
Well, they were watching. They saw them go through because of their supercomputers.
That's what I thought. They have the supercomputer, and they talk about how they have cameras to look at the submarine. But then it doesn't quite explain how Pitt managed to talk him into letting him and March go down with the underwater camera to take pictures of the submarine that they're already taking pictures of from the Martha
You're
Ann.
right. And I just went along with that. There's no reason. There's no bit of sanity in that decision.
So I guess they did watch Pitt go through the hatch, and they just assumed that the sub was full of water and they were out of oxygen.
Which is a natural assumption. You figure the sub is a derelict.
Yeah.
It's been months and months.
It's been 6 months.
And even though it's a nuclear submarine.
Nuclear. It's pronounced nuclear.
Whatever.
Nuclear.
Yada yada. Speed of plot, you don't think it's going to be functional. But they get Dirk topside and back on the Martha Ann, and there's a fog rolling in. And it smells of eucalyptus. Which can mean only one thing. Pandas.
I was going to say, you've already jumped ahead to chapter 11 here, but first
Yes, I dropped the eucalyptus clue early.
They flood the forward compartment just to make sure that if anybody comes back, they can't raise the sub and get it out of there. By flooding the forward compartment, they're keeping it on the bottom of the seafloor for a little bit. On the way up, Pitt, and only Pitt, fights a hammerhead shark.
Yes. And he shoots it with the baddie's space gun.
Yeah.
And he wins.
Yeah.
This gun could change the universe. I know it's the American in me, but I'm like, we have a shark gun?
It shoots underwater perfectly.
Everyone needs a shark gun. What if a shark gun enters our classrooms?
And then it fast forwards slightly, and Pitt is getting drunk, and Boland yells at him about March, but then Boland is actually, like, nice to him about March.
Yes, because he sees Pitt beating himself up about it.
Yeah.
Because he killed him.
Pitt proves that all their messages are being jammed, because he can't believe that Boland hasn't sent all this information back to Naval Headquarters and gotten zero response. So Boland tries the emergency frequencies, and there's no response either. So Boland's like, oh shit, this might actually be bad.
Boland comes across as a bit thick.
Little bit.
When he sees the fog rolling in, that smells like eucalyptus, he was like, oh, it's a normal fog. And Dirk is like, there's a 5-knot wind and it's hot. What's normal about this fog? So Boland comes across as a turnip.
Not very good at the ocean.
Yeah, he's new to the ocean, this Commander Boland.
Chapter 11, they're now in the fog, and I was amused at, like, the sonar man is like, there's nothing out there. There's only a school of fish, dozens of fish, approximately 6 feet long, heading this way. Like, and Pitt is the only one who goes, they're not fish, you idiot.
Either way would be terrifying. You have, it wasn't, the guy said, oh, yeah, maybe like 200 fish coming our way. 200 6-foot to 7-foot fish coming your way in unison? Even if it's just nature. Nature's coming to fuck your day up, as it sometimes does. But yes, these are underwater people swimming towards a ship.
Thank God we had Pitt here to tell us that. They hand out the guns. Pitt is getting the helicopter prepped. And it felt like this gun battle wasn't the best one that he's written. Because Pitt mows through like 10, 12 people, and it's not particularly exciting. Like, he's just like waving the gun around because he has his full auto Mauser. He's just like waving the gun around and people die. Then he waves the gun around some more where people die. I was like, it's not.
Well, because yeah, I get that. It's just
felt like he was fast forwarding.
baddies coming over the side.
Yeah.
So it's like a video game. You just have to clear the scene.
Nintendo game from the 60s.
Yeah. Real hunt and peck.
Yeah, keep trying to sneeze. Yeah. Anyway.
Go look at the sun. That'll help you sneeze. And then we get to, after the baddies are hunted down for a bit, we cut to chapter 12 and we meet Henry. Just once. This guy, Henry.
Oh, yeah. Henry Fujima, a 4th-generation Japanese-Hawaiian fisherman.
Whose day is about to get fucked up. And that is because while Dirk's getting everybody off...
Phrasing?
The Martha Ann, via helicopter, and heroically, and the wind's in his hair. The Martha Ann just keeps on going and cuts Henry's vessel in two. And until we know otherwise, Henry's dead.
Yeah, and I have no idea why that happened.
No, that's just, we meet Henry, Henry gets fucked.
Phrasing, mother.
End of Henry.
The Martha Ann, well, it wasn't dead in the water, but it wasn't moving at the time.
I think this occurred after the helicopter took off and the homing signal was engaged on the Martha Ann.
Oh, maybe.
I think I jumped the gun because I did. Dirk's shooting bad guys. He hears of Boland was attacked by the naked seaman
Oh yeah, these are all
in their loincloths.
large hairy men in loincloths.
He goes and he rescues him. He pulls a harpoon out of him, very manly like.
Not just pulls a harpoon out of him, he puts his foot on Boland's chest, grabs the spear with both hands and has to yank. And he's like, okay, on the count of 3, 1, 2, and he rips it out. And Boland's like, that wasn't 3, and passes out.
Well,
which was kind of funny.
They didn't say ahead of time, it's 1, 2, 3, go? Or 1, 2, and then go on? You have to sort that out ahead of time.
Oh, absolutely.
So everybody's safe. Everybody who's alive and a good guy is safe aboard the helicopter that's retreating. So the Martha Ann is got no more good guys. The system makes it go back home.
Yes. And chapter 12.
Oh, yes, Henry gets fucked up, and...
Henry gets fucked up, and Pitt returns to his apartment.
Yes.
Does he have an apartment in that resort where he's staying, or...?
I guess he's got a...
Because he was at a hotel room at the beginning, but now they call it an apartment. But it's still the exact same, 10th floor...
Some people live in hotels?
Balcony.
Temporarily?
They do. I've lived in a hotel before.
Oh, like divorced dads.
I sleep in a racing car. Do you?
I sleep in a big bed with my wife.
I was married at the time. But I guess, yeah, that's where he's living while he's in Hawaii. They flash back a little bit. They talk about how Pitt ignored orders and landed at the hospital in order to get people medical treatment.
And then he slipped out the side door.
And then he just, went home.
Which I really respect. He wanted to sleep in his bed. But old Sly McGee from Chapter 1 rears her ugly head.
There's a knock at
I guess not ugly.
There's a knock at the door, and I had to write down this sentence. There's a strange sort of beauty in a woman caught in the throes of fear.
No!
Is there?
That's terrifying.
So that is something that I have noticed on Instagram, because Instagram will push what it thinks you want to see. And I'm guessing Instagram knows that I'm a guy in his 40s. And a lot of what it's showing me seems to be Instagram models, but the aesthetic is woman who was just either verbally abused or beaten and then had to put on makeup for this photo shoot. It's women who look like they just got done crying and are scared. And is that a thing? Is this an entire aesthetic on internet social media?
Well,
these women do not look happy to be there.
This is a dark path we can go down. It is something I've found that every often there is a man that you will meet out there that really likes to see women in pain.
I'm sure there is. I just didn't expect
it's not usual
to see it on Instagram in between cat pictures.
No, it shouldn't be a motif or a meme or anything, or an aesthetic.
And what does it think about me that it's
caping for it a bit hard?
Here's what they like. No, stop, please.
Clive Cussler has fucked up your algorithm. It's not your fault.
Oh God, maybe it is him. But yeah, it's Adrian Hunter from chapter 2 or 3.
Listeners, Topper is basically weeping. He's trying to not sneeze so hard. It's coming out of his eyes.
I have the sniffles.
You're very, very sad about this book.
It's Adrian Hunter. She's wearing a muumuu and she's sobbing. They killed him. I was in bed with a friend and they came through the window with these little funny guns that make no sound and they shot him 12 times. And they stood there and laughed at me. And she hides in a closet, but they don't know that it's a double room, so the closet opens up on both ends. Like
a Jack and Jill closet.
So she escapes into the guest room and then runs away. And she didn't want to go to the police because I was scared, which is weird, but we gloss over that. And then she couldn't reach Daddy because her dad is Admiral Hunter. So all she could think of was to come to Dirk Pitt's apartment.
Which is odd.
Dirk's response here, I also had to write down, is first things first, fix your makeup.
Yes. Hey, you crazy bitch. Your makeup's a mess. Stop blubbering at me. Go fix your face. And then we can talk.
Sure, someone's dead, but you're unpleasant to look at.
You're not being an adequate decoration. Go fix yourself up, lady. And she's wearing a muumuu. My interactions with muumuus was a distant cousin called John Boy, where we had to pray over him, and he was wearing a giant muumuu because he couldn't fit into clothing because he was almost 1,000 pounds. That's my interaction with muumuus. I don't think of them as sexy in any way because of that encounter.
I don't want to look like a weirdo. I'll just go with a muumuu.
So she's wearing a sexy muumuu, which I couldn't wrap my head around.
I think it's a Hawaiian thing.
But it's basically a slip dress. She's wearing a long shirt that's basically a mini dress. Not the muumuu of your grandma in Florida who just got, her roses put in.
Dirk, or Clive, does find a bit of time to describe how nice her ass looks in the muumuu while she's crying and talking about how the person she was sleeping with just got murdered in front of her. Stay on topic.
No. No, never. Why was this lady's first instinct to go to his temporary holiday apartment? Because like you said, it's a hotel, it's an apartment, which is it? Fine. It's in a long-stay hotel room. She's going to know where her dad's office is, regardless if she can reach her dad or not. That's a more temporary mental location, like she'd have in her hard drive in terms of panic.
That's what I thought, because once you're driving, it's not like, well, maybe they would get her, because we've already had Dirk driving and was shot at and almost run off the road by a black man in a pickup truck, which has also never come back.
No, but he did die spectacularly when he was
Well, that's important.
kebabbed.
But eventually she reveals that the person who died was Oral Chanana, which was one of the naval commanders from that big meeting at the start of the book.
And then she goes to go fix her face. And then Dirk takes this time to call her dad.
And he gets through.
Which has got to be a tough phone call.
Yes. I did appreciate how that conversation went. Because first Admiral Hunter yells at him like, why didn't you stick around for debriefing? And Pitt's like, dude, I am so exhausted. My leg is destroyed. I wasn't going to be any good to you. I had to go get some sleep. But I can't even get some sleep because of your daughter.
Your whore daughter.
And the Admiral's like, what? She's like, oh yeah, she's here. Her boyfriend just got shot. And Pitt explains everything to him, and Admiral Hunter takes it in stride because he's, powerful authority figure. He knows how to handle stuff.
Which is why I love new fiction. The new Amazon series, I know Amazon's a devil. It's the worst. But the new Mr. and Mrs. Smith shows the super spies in their frailties. They catch colds. They mess up. Sometimes they're just lousy at their job.
I have heard good things about that, and I love Donald Glover, so I'll have to watch it at some point.
Oh, he's so wonderful. And smooth. God damn. But we don't have that level of insight. This is still the days of daddy government. So Admiral Hunter is going to take this in stride, not like a normal human would. Every human male I know, parent would be like, excuse me, what? They wouldn't understand.
Uh-huh.
I don't think anybody can deal with the events of the day like Admiral Hunter and then hear his daughter went to this guy's house for some reason and he's got to send a security detail. He processes this enormously quickly.
Yeah. My daughter was sleeping with my fleet commander, and not only does she know who Dirk Pitt is, but she went directly to his apartment. She knows where he lives, and Dirk's like, we just met at a party. And Hunter's like, that makes sense. Okay.
And he says to himself, how do you tell a man that his daughter is a sex maniac and a coke-whore? You don't, Dirk. You don't have to.
And the last time we saw her, she had just gotten punched out in a girl fight over who gets to sleep with Dirk.
She's not at all loved by Cussler in this book. Cussler hates Adrian. Maybe that was the name of his first wife? A bad girlfriend or something? But, Adrian gets dealt dirty.
So Hunter says he's going to send them a security detail and to just hold tight. And before the security detail gets there...
Men ascend from the sky. Break in through the windows and the doors. SEAL style.
Although this time, they're not wearing loincloths. These are giant hairy men wearing khakis and Hawaiian shirts. Because they're undercover.
I rejected that and put them in loincloths in my mind palace.
It does make more sense, doesn't it?
Listeners, if you've heard the phrase gird your loins, it means tying the butt flap and the groin flap of a loincloth together so you're ready for battle.
Yes.
Gird your loins sounds so much...
You don't want to get sand up there.
...better if you don't know what it means. If it just means tying your diaper together. It's like, yes, ready for war.
It's a battle diaper.
Yes. So, Adrian gets kidnapped right away.
Yeah, basically.
Well, we see her rump, and they threaten Dirk, yada yada. If you do anything, we'll kill our...
We see her ass again. Clive is really into butts in this book.
He is. He matures later on to love the whole female form in excruciating detail.
Yep.
But yeah, this book, he likes big butts.
Adrian is drugged and taken away, and a giant man with golden eyes, boy, that's a weird description, says, you move, she dies, and they have some back and forth. This is where we find out that they wanted Dirk to find the capsule because Dirk finding it would lend it credence because Dirk is so well respected in naval circles, and they knew Dirk would take it directly to Admiral Hunter. So Dirk being in on this is actually all part of their evil plan, which I appreciated. It wasn't a dumb coincidence that kicked off this whole thing.
It is a wild stab in the dark, though.
Yes.
How long when did they know Dirk would wake up? When do you put the capsule in the water? How do you time that. We have to time this capsule surfacing on the waves for when Dirk Pitt wakes up from his seaside nap.
There must have been like a school of 6-foot-long fish down there just waiting with the capsule to make sure.
Oh, and maybe like a kid coming by, like Truman Show style. Like, now it's time to wake him up.
That does remind me, something that we bounced over very briefly. When the amphibious humans are attacking the Martha Ann in the fog bank, there seems to be a plastic box, like, attached to their bodies just under their armpit.
Yes, they have no scuba gear.
But he doesn't have time to explain it. But yes, I do believe that these are like amphibious frogmen.
Like aftermarket gills?
Yeah.
But just like a little box. Which is funny, because around here, where I live, there's a religious cult that wears little boxes, but they're prayer boxes, and they can be...
Ah, yes.
Anywhere. Now I can see them.
Phylacteries.
I think you're amphibian people. Good for you guys.
Praise Frog Jesus. The man says his name is Delphi, and then he gives a big, long villain monologue.
After saying he's not going to monologue.
About how he doesn't do villain monologues, which I had to appreciate.
Yes, and he goes into a real silly...
Yeah, he's ranting about how he just wants to be free from the communists, as well as the imperial capitalists. Pitt takes this opportunity to make fun of Karl Marx for some reason.
Which didn't track, because this guy is saying he's trying to get away from...
I also don't like Karl Marx.
Communism.
Yeah.
But hey, any Dirk at Karl Marx, go for it, Clive. But he's just trying to kill time, because he knows that the Admiral's men, or security details, should be there soon.
Mm-hmm.
And he's trying to just get the guy to monologue out.
Kill time, kill time. They explain how they're going to kill him by faking his death and making it look like he electrocuted himself in the bathtub while shaving, which is an odd thing to have happen and certainly won't be suspicious after contacting Admiral Hunter. They know exactly who Dirk is and where Dirk is and who Adrian is, but I guess they don't have his phone tapped.
Well, that's an oversight, isn't it? And in terms of believable accidental deaths, Boeing would like to have a word.
But then Pitt smells something magical. He smells plumeria. And if you remember from way back at the beginning, Summer, the weird, dark-skinned, green-eyed, red-headed, ethnically indeterminate woman with the biggest ass in Hawaii, smells very strongly of plumeria.
And nobody else notices this overwhelming scent.
Yeah, no one. And then after that, like, Dirk asks, wait, who is Summer? And Delphi's like, Summer is my daughter. For no apparent reason. Like, there's no point for Dirk to bring that up. There's no reason for Delphi to tell him that. And nobody else can smell this damn flower.
They don't have senses? Maybe the underwater people can't smell anymore.
Maybe. I'm not there yet.
Then why have perfume?
To hide the fact that they all smell like seawater.
Oh, they would smell like low tide.
Yeah.
How did Dirk not know they were coming?
So Delphi leaves and leaves 2 guards to kill Pitt. And like all supervillains, he assumes, I'll leave you with these guards and assume everything went well.
And these are underachieving henchmen.
Yes, they are. One of them punches Dirk so hard that he breaks his own wrist, which Dirk takes like some comfort in.
No, the impact hit you.
And Summer like pokes a hand through the drapes and gives him a knife.
Yes, because he's tied to a chair with his arms behind his back, as I'm doing now because this is an audio podcast. But yes, he's trying...
I'm flying around the room.
Yeah, don't hit the chandelier. Why do you have flying monkeys? I thought those were make-believe.
They're my kids.
But the lady's hiding behind the curtain and she hands him something to cut his ties.
Yes.
So he's egging the henchman to come closer so he can lash out. Henchman has a gun, he's got a knife, he's got to time it.
Yeah, and it's just like the scene from the end. Have you ever seen the Steven Seagal movie On Deadly Ground?
Yes, but I was a fetus.
Okay. In hindsight, I really should have suggested this for the Escapist Room, because this is one of my favorite batshit insane movies of all time. It's written, produced, directed, and starring Steven Seagal.
He can write?
No.
He can read?
But anyway.
I met him once when I was a little girl. He was shooting a movie when I was around 9 or 10, and my little school girlfriend, like best friend, had such a crush on him, and he wouldn't do autographs. He was like, get away, kid.
Oh yeah, he's a dick. Famously a dick.
Oh, he was so mean to her. Like, a little girl, like, you're so wonderful. And he's like, scram.
All throughout this movie, because he has to deal with, like, private security firms, he has to deal with ex-military, he has to deal with mercenaries. All throughout this movie, everybody is telling each other constantly how much of a badass Steven Seagal is. He kills them all going through this movie, and at the end, like, the super old tough mercenary guy who, like, knows all the tricks that Steven Seagal knows finally gets the drop on him. Steven Seagal has no gun. This guy pops up. His face is blacked. He's disguised. He has a machine gun, and he can kill Steven Seagal. So he walks all the way across the room until he's standing 2 feet away from Steven Seagal, who then takes the gun away and kills him.
It's a gun, not a knife.
If you have the main character trapped and you have a gun and he doesn't, don't get within grabbing distance, you moron. But that's what this henchman does too.
There was, and I'm only saying this because it makes me seem cool. When I was a kid, I was in a movie called Cadillac Man, Robin Williams.
I've seen that.
I was in the background in the scene
Holy
where
crap.
he's being held hostage, and the perpetrator is pushing the gun into his back, and he's like, yo, dude, it's a gun, not a knife.
Stab, stab, stab.
You don't have to, yeah. So that's written on my hard drive completely. Oh my God, Robin Williams over there, oh my God.
Nice. No, I'm jealous.
I didn't get to meet him because there were hundreds of extras.
Oh, yeah.
We were a sea of extras.
Gotta have crowd scenes.
Yes, it was a crowd scene. It was nice. Oh, I just got your invite for the Zencaster.
Hooray!
Oh, I met the lady in it who went on to be in Tank Girl. Lori Petty. Lori Petty had to run through our scene.
Now I'm jealous.
She was really cool. She looked like a rock star. Little me was like, oh, you're so cool. She had this weird blonde hair with the...
I think that was always her vibe. I love Tank Girl. The movie, the comics, all of it.
I really appreciated that movie because it played in a movie theater for like a year. They just stopped charging us. As teenagers, we had no place to go. We could just go and...
Nice.
Tank Girl anytime. But that's a heck of a tangent.
It is.
Anyway,
we're almost done.
Summer hands Pitt a knife. She's smelly. Nobody could smell her.
Yeah.
Her ass is enormous and fantastic, and it saves the day.
So Pitt stabs the guy with the gun because he closes the distance to within stabbing distance.
He uses the knife.
Yeah.
The guy was holding.
Stabs the guy who has a gun, and then the other...
I was giving you a hard time for no reason there.
Okay.
Just for my amusement.
I'm sick. I don't know these things. And he shoots the other guard, and just then there's a knock on the door. Yay, the security detail's here.
Backup. Hey, at least backup was coming.
Wait, are we still doing phrasing?
That's never happened before in these books.
Yeah, but Dirk ignores the knock on the door. He just checks the balcony for Summer, but she's not there. There's only a plumeria flower. Dun, dun, dun.
So it wasn't perfume. It was actually floral-based scent enhancement.
He was saved by a tropical flower.
That must be very pungent. And now he's got to tell Admiral Hunter his daughter's been kidnapped.
Yeah, he has to find some way to explain that. Your daughter is hanging out with a bunch of large men, but not in the usual way this time.
Good. Yeah. I got a bright side for you. Silver linings.
I hope he has to explain to Admiral Hunter what Adrian is like.
But Admiral Hunter...
Because you have to assume Admiral Hunter is going to have some questions about why she was sleeping with his fleet commander. Or maybe not. Who knows?
Dirk has a whole theory about, and we'll get there. But luckily for him, Dirk is not on the hook for answering that question. Why was my daughter sleeping with Orly is not his department. He can bow out of that gracefully. He won't, but he can be like, oh, my name's Paul, and that's between you all. He can go that route. You are dying.
I'm fine.
He says, as you can't see.
I got stabbed with that shark thing, and all my internal organs are leaking out my eyes and ears and nose right now, so...
Right, listeners, we have to stop this podcast. Because I have to hit Topper with a tranquilizer dart.
Hooray!
NyQuil from overseas, for over the continent. Overseas if it goes the long way. The earth is round.
All right, I'm going to go lay down.
You've earned it. I'll see you later tonight. If you're up for it, do you want to reschedule?
Oh, no.
Okay. How old are they youngins?
I think they're early 30s.
Okay. I don't know anybody in their early 30s.
Because they watched a bunch of 90s movies as kids, so I'm assuming about 10 years younger than us.
Can I ask them what the opposite of a car is? See what their answer.
Of course.
Let's scare them away.
All right. Goodbye, everybody.
Bye.
What's got that island that don't exist? What's got that hero that's so sexist? Yeah! Pacific Vortex! It's got the fog that smells so nice. Pacific Vortex! It's gonna come and kill you twice. Get ready, Dirk. You've got one chance to shoot some bad guys with no pants. have been Topper and Nancy. Find us on Twitter and Instagram at Cussler. Hustlers